Hi everyone, my name is Alec, and this is my final project for the CS50 Python course. It is called Comfy Canines and Friends, given that is the name of my dog walking business that I am making this project for. One of the biggest struggles that I've had with this business over the past year or so is my client management and doing client intake, allowing people to essentially request services in manners other than just by calling or texting me, and allowing me to manage all of my clients' information, being their demographics, dates of services, payment information, accounts receivable, and things of that sort. I also don't really have any way of keeping track of all my data in terms of what services are most popular, what times of year are most popular. So in order for me to actually grow this business and build out eventually a full-fledged kennel business where I do offer services like boarding and daycare and training and other things like that, this is information that would be very, very helpful and useful. And so I think building out a program to allow me to manage and keep track of this data, it would be important. So we'll kind of dive right into my program here. And as we can see here, a lot of my program is built around loops. This allows for a lot of leniency with user input. This will allow for a user to put in certain dates that they're requesting services, for example, but they're not following the format that I need in order for the program to splice out those dates and put them in a document and check them against the dates that are being requested and the number of days that are being requested to allow for estimates and payments to be accurate. Again, if we're going to allow for users to be making payments online, I want to make sure that estimates are appropriate and accurate, and therefore clients are being charged the appropriate amounts of money. So we'll kind of dive into the program here. So what we'll do is we'll kind of start in the beginning of the program, but there is a very, very, very beginning part of the program where I allow for the user to input a command line argument. That's going to be for me to access the admin access aspect of the program. So that's where I'm going to allow for myself to build out capabilities to build and draw out certain data based off of the client information that's being stored. So I kind of made some mock client lists and a mock client list PDF. So that will show you at the end of the program, but essentially what it's going to do, what my goal for this part is to allow myself to find out what times of year, again, as we said earlier in the beginning of the video, what times of year are most popular, what services are most popular, and also pull certain clients' information being based off of the number, pull all the people that have multiple dogs, pull all the clients that only have one singular dog, pull all the clients that are named Max, for example. So things like that, again, just randomly thinking of ideas right now, but again, want to continue building so that I can access certain information. But again, I don't want a client, for example, to access that information. Once we start the client, once we start the program out, we're going to allow for the client or user to put in their names. So what this is going to do is every time a user input is being requested, that's going to determine the next line of code that's being shown or prompted to the user. So here, if we put in, let's just say we're going to put in Albiz double door as the client. So we're going to say that this is a new or returning client. So we're going to go with a new client here, but if we're going to select that he was a returning client, what that's going to do is it's going to check his first and last name against the master's CSV or client roster list. What that's going to do is it's then going to prompt the user to confirm that this is them based off of the names of their dog. If the user confirms, it's going to allow them to move into a request for services. If, however, they do not confirm that the dogs are theirs, it will then take the user back to the beginning of the program and will notify them that they either inputted their names incorrectly, or they might actually be a new client, or there might have been some error in the program, and it will just kind of start from the beginning. But once we start with a new client, it's going to allow for the intake of a bunch of different client demographics. So it's going to be the names of their dogs, the dogs that they have. So let's just say Albus Dumbledore here has 2 dogs of his own. We're going to say that they're Harry and Ron as his dogs. And again, we're going to go through here. We're going to get some information. So we're going to go albus@hogwarts.com. And there is in this program an email validator that is already an existing library that was imported into here. And it is using the validator just to check the format of the email. Same with the phone number here. So we're going to go 987-654-3210. And it's not checking, again, if these are valid emails or phone numbers. It's just going to check to see if they follow the proper format. And once we do that and everything checks out, the user is going to be added. We're going to get a little notification here that the user has been added. What that means is that that user's information has been uploaded into the master CSV list. It also means that the user has an individual TXT file that has been created for them. And what that's going to also do is it's going to put at the top of that TXT file the date that they were created. So that, again, that'll allow me to kind of track to see who my newest clients are, who my oldest clients are, just as another point of data to draw. And once we get to here, it'll again kind of take us back to where a confirmed returning user is going to be, and it's going to allow the user to input services. So just for the sake of allowing us to dive a little bit deeper into the program, we'll select other, but the top 3 services that most dog businesses offer are walks, daycares, and overnight services. But if we were to select other, here we're going to do just like some other generic services, nail trimming, bats, grooming, but again, we're going to allow for me to continue building this program out to allow for the offering of a bunch of different services as the business continues to grow and actually does offer different services. But just for the sake of this, let's just say we're going to go back to the previous selection and say we want to do walk services, where it's going to allow for us to also input, or for the user to input, either the number 1 or the actual service that is being listed under that number. So this allows for a little bit more leniency, but again, it still does not allow for the user to put in 1 parentheses walk. Maybe that should be something that I should change to allow for that to happen. But again, this, as the program continues to grow, we're going to allow for the program to allow for the user to input a variety of different things and tolerate a lot of different inputs. But for the time being here, we're going to say that we're going to need 3 different walks. And again, it's going to ask for the dates in a specific manner. So we're going to say we're going to do some time towards the middle of February, beginning of March, and the middle of March. So again, here, if the user does not input the dates correctly, it's going to loop back around and make sure that the user is inputting the proper amounts of dates. The purpose for this question here, again, it might be kind of silly and it might be repetitive, so there might be a good reason to take this question out, to be quite frank. But what it's going to do is it's going to check against the dates that are being inputted. If there aren't 3 separate dates inputted to match the number of dates here, 3 being inputted for the number of days that the service is being requested for, it's going to again request for the user to input the number of days being requested, and then again for the dates themselves that are being requested. That might be repetitive, and there probably should be a good reason to take that out, but for the time being, that's how the program is currently built. So once the user again confirms that these are the dates that are being requested with a yes, what it's going to do is it's going to let the user know that they are confirmed for that stay, and here it's going to actually update their independent file, and it's going to update the CSV list. The CSV list is going to track the total amount that they're owed and the total number of days that the user had utilized that specific service. On their TXT file, what it's going to do is it's going to track the dates of that service that's being rendered, as well as the service itself that's being rendered. So it's going to track to see also if the user has made a payment as well. So that is another one of the selections here, as we can kind of see over here, where it's going to make the user input a certain amount of money in a dollar format where it's going to allow for the user to make a payment here and subtract from the total amount that they owe. And again, that's going to trigger a series of events where it's also going to subtract from the total owed that is listed in that CSV file as well. But if the user doesn't want to do anything, let's just say there's nothing else that we can do. It's going to close the program out, thank the user for using Comfy Canines as its provider for their dog care services, and it's going to close them out. As well as here, as we can see, it does give the user an estimate for their service. What that's going to do is it's also going to update that CSV file, and it's going to add to the total amount owed for that individual client to allow, again, for me to pull that information when, let's just say, a client asks for how much they owe in total. And that's pretty much the entirety of the program right now. Again, there is an admin portion of here where if I were to put in admin underscore Alec, I can put in the password to my account. And let's just say, as of right now, I've only really built out the capabilities for this to allow for me to print out a client list. What it'll do is it will create a PDF, it'll save it, and then it'll create it. And once that is saved, it's going to throw that into a PDF file that looks something like this. Again, this is kind of just a general example of what it would look like. There needs to be some other services included on here. And again, these are all fake clients, but this would ideally be a list of all of Comfy Canines' actual clients and all their information to allow for me to pull this information when I need to access it. And if anyone has any advice or any tips on what I should include on a client management tool, they would be greatly appreciated. I've used Salesforce and some other CRM platforms before, but this is kind of something that I want to build out from scratch. So if anyone has any ideas for things and ideas and capabilities that I should try to work on, throw them in the comments in this video, and if I can make any progress in those things, I will send some updates. I do also have a domain name, and I will have a live website hosted. Once I have this program built out and have a website, I'm either going to be working on learning front end or working with somebody that has some experience in design and front end and building out a website, so I can make this final project for a course something that I can use in real life and have clients actually utilize to make my business a little bit more efficient, allow me to gather data and make my business succeed and grow a little bit in the areas where it's strong and find out areas where it's weak. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video in its entirety. Again, I appreciate any sort of advice anybody has, any updates to my code. I will try to see if I can maybe throw a comment on the video to send to whoever wants to follow the progress of my first ever coding program and see its progress and see how we can grow. That would be great. But thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you guys in future videos that maybe I can talk about some other programs and projects that I've developed that are a little bit more in detail and in depth and a little bit more complicated than this. But thank you, everybody. Have a great one.